Good morning everyone. This is my first video on YouTube. That is, I'm a new YouTuber, and in this my first video I will be telling you about diversity in living organisms, chapter 7, NCRT CBSC. Now, part 1, introduction. So, introductory part to the chapter, I will be telling you what is the basis of classification, characteristic used for hierarchical classification, and classification and evolution. Variations in life forms. We all know that there are a lot of differences, that is variations, in the other life forms. So some are difference in size, like we may see the blue whale which is 30 meters, and the redwood trees of California that are 100 meters. So here there is a difference in the size. Difference in shapes. Here we can see that amoeba, which is which can contain different shapes, and we can compare it with ourselves. We are of fixed shape and we don't change our shapes, but amoeba can. Difference in colors. We also see ranges from colorless or even transparent worms to brightly colored birds and flowers. This bewildering variety of life around us has evolved on the earth over millions of years. However, we do not have more than a tiny fraction of this time to try and understand all these living organisms. So we cannot look at them one by one. Instead, we look for similarities among the organisms. Now, what or why do we need to classify organisms? Taxonomic classification is an important branch of science due to the following reasons. Classification makes the study of varieties of organisms easy. It reveals before us a picture of all forms of organisms at a glance. It helps us to understand the interrelationship among different groups of organisms. It serves as a base for the development of other pure biological sciences. Example, biogeography, that is geographical distribution of plants and animals. It also helps in understanding and development of other applied branches of science such as agriculture, public health and environment biology. Now, what is the basis of classification? Attempts at classifying living things into groups have been made since time immemorial. Greek thinker Aristotle classified animals according to whether they live on land, in water, or in the air. This is a very simple way of looking at life, but misleading too. For example, animals that live in the sea include corals, whales, octopuses, starfish, and sharks. We can immediately see that these are very different from each other in numerous ways. In fact, their habitat is the only point they share in common. This is not an appropriate way of thinking groups of organisms to study and think about. We therefore need to decide which characteristics to be used as the basis for making the broadest divisions. That is, therefore, first the broadest division should be taken, and after that we must see the next set of characteristics for making subgroups within this division. This process of classification within each group can then continue using new characteristics each time. Now, what do you mean by a characteristic? A characteristic is a particular form or a particular function that most of us have. Five fingers on each hand is thus a characteristic. That we can run but the banyan tree cannot is also a characteristics. Now, to understand how some characteristics are decided as being more fundamental than others, let us consider a stone wall is built. The stones used will have different shapes and sizes. The stones at the top of the wall would not influence the choice of stones that come below them. On the other hand, the shapes and size of the stones in the lowermost layer will decide the shape and size of the next layer, and so on. Now, characteristics used for a hierarchical classification. A eukaryotic cell has a membrane-bound organelles, including a nucleus, which allows circular processes to be carried out efficiently in isolation from each other. Therefore, organisms which do not have a clearly demarcated nucleus and other organelles would need to have their biochemical pathways organized in very different ways. This tells us that the first level of classification is the type of cell, either eukaryotic or prokaryotic cell. Do the cells occur singly or grouped? This decides that whether they use the principle of division of labor. In such a body design, all cells would not be identical. Instead, groups of cells will carry out specialized functions. This makes a very basic distinction in the body designs of organisms. As a result, an amoeba and a worm are very different in their body designs. Do the organisms produce their own food? That is, do they perform the process of photosynthesis? Being able to produce one's own food versus having to get food from outside would make very different body designs of necessary. Of the organisms that perform photosynthesis, what is the level of the organism of the body? And now, classification and evolution. What is evolution? Most life forms that we see today have arisen by an accumulation of changes in the body design that allow the organisms possessing them to survive better. This is meant by evolution. Who described this idea of evolution first time? Charles Darwin first described this idea of evolution in 1859. In 1859, in his book The Origin of Species. When we connect this idea of evolution to classification, we will find some groups of organisms which have ancient body designs that have not changed very much. We will also find other group of organisms that have acquired their particular body designs relatively recently. Now, so this is what I was going to tell you, and this is the end of the video. If you are having any questions regarding this topic or any queries, etc., please do comment and ask questions. Thank you for watching my video. Please do subscribe, comment, like and share. Thank you.